All right, cool. It's recording, so whenever you're ready, you can just go.
Hello, everybody in Group B. Welcome to what is called Week 5. This week we are discussing professional growth, supervision, and evaluation. So Dwayne and I welcome you to our discussion, and let's get started. In the last several weeks, we've spent a lot of time looking at the leadership quality standard document, so I thought maybe that would be the best place to start, and it would allow us to frame our discussion from a leadership perspective. Leadership quality standard number 6, providing instructional leadership, states that a leader is to ensure that every student has access to quality teaching and optimum learning experiences. Specifically, indicators B and C. B is implementing professional growth, supervision, and evaluation processes to ensure that teachers meet the teaching quality standard. And C, ensuring that student instruction addresses learning outcomes outlined in all programs of study. All of the indicators under number 6 point out to the responsibility of the principal to be responsible for the education happening in the school building. But those two specifically speak to the title of our discussion this week. Personally, I believe that the professional growth, supervision, and evaluation could be an excellent tool in schools that would allow teachers to be supported. It would open the doors of communication around best practice and improve collegiality amongst teachers and administrators. How these tools are used in each school jurisdiction is going to look a little bit different, as every jurisdiction is responsible for their own policies, but I believe that they could play a very powerful role, and we're excited this week to see how you see these policies working in your district and in your future. So going back to the very beginning, we start with the School Act. The School Act numbers 18 and 19 outline both the roles of the principal and the teacher. Specifically staying focused on the leader, number 19 states that a school principal must ensure that the instruction provided by the teachers employed in the school is consistent with the courses of study and education programs prescribed, and a school principal must evaluate the teachers employed in the school. Moving on from the School Act, we then move to Alberta Education Policy 2.1.5, Policy on Teacher Growth, Supervision, and Evaluation. And this policy is to ensure that all teachers' practice is consistently in line with the teaching quality standard. This policy mandates that each school authority is responsible for creating and implementing policies that govern teacher growth, supervision, and evaluation. The Alberta Education Policy outlines key aspects for each. So I'll take a quick minute here and go through each of those 3 key sections before I move on to what my division is doing in terms of creating their own policies. As far as teacher growth, the policy from Alberta Education mandates that every year, a teacher is responsible for creating and submitting a growth plan that reflects their own goals, and should also reflect the goals of the school or take into consideration the goals of the school, the jurisdiction, and directives from Alberta Ed. And it states that school principals are responsible for collecting teacher growth plans and reviewing these documents to ensure that a teacher has completed the document according to specifications provided. It also makes sure that you understand at the end that these documents are not to be a part of evaluative procedures, which would be important for new teachers coming in, as well as new principals coming in, making sure that they're not making the mistake of judging a teacher based on what they've admitted is an area of need for them. The next piece is supervision. And notably for me, and I'll come back to this later, supervision is very short everywhere. There's not much said about it. And I find that a little bit shocking, as to me that would be a key that would bridge teacher growth plans and the evaluation process. So in the policy, under supervision, school principals are responsible for the ongoing supervision of teachers. They are responsible for providing support and guidance to teachers, observing and receiving information about the quality of teaching, and identifying behaviors or practices of a teacher that for any reason may require an evaluation. And then it moves into evaluation, and it talks about the school principal who is responsible for teacher evaluation. It goes through the fact that evaluations can both be requested by the teacher or if the principal has reason to believe that an evaluation is necessary. Where we see evaluations happening most in schools on a day-to-day basis is teachers searching for their interim certification or a permanent position. And then those ones, of course, because they happen more frequently, are quite detailed as the procedures and what needs to be done for each. Okay. The principal has certain duties in terms of evaluation. They need to, of course, then be abreast and aware of the teacher quality standards so that they know what they are searching for. They need to communicate very specifically and very clearly with the teachers about the process, what's going to happen, what are the possible outcomes. I think those procedures are great. It makes it very black and white for everybody involved. But again, if principal and or teacher aren't aware of these policies, then there's room for communication to get mixed up. But if the rules are followed, then it should be pretty simple and clear. The Alberta Education Policy on Teacher Growth, Supervision, and Evaluation does not restrict a principal from taking action if it is believed that practices of a teacher endangers the safety of students, constitutes a neglect of duty or a breach of trust, or refusal to obey a lawful order. That little part was added in at the end, and I believe that's important to know that nobody is protected at all costs. If you're doing something wrong, then school authorities still have reason to override the policy that was set forward. In terms of the teacher quality standard, I mentioned that it's important for principals to be aware of that. Again, the whole document is important. Specifically, item 3K speaks to teachers are lifelong learners, talks to the teacher's responsibility for ongoing professional and personal development, as well as the teacher's responsibility to work with administrators in evaluation procedures. So the documents that we mostly refer to that you might find most useful are the School Act, the Alberta Education Policy 2.1.5 on growth, supervision, and evaluation, and then the Leader Quality Standard and the Teaching Quality Standard. So given the background information on the rules and the laws, next we both took a deeper look at what our own districts were doing. If I can share my screen here. Okay, my district has 3 policies that speak directly to this. They're actually administrative procedures. The first one is Administrative Procedure 403, Teacher Professional Growth Plan. As you can see on the screen, it is quite short, it is simple. It clearly meets the mandates of Alberta Education and covers everybody's responsibilities and nothing more. So it's pretty short and concise. Teacher will submit a plan, principal will submit to superintendent that plans were followed, and that's about it. I'm going to jump ahead to 405. It's a little bit more specific than 404. 405 speaks to teacher evaluation. It is here a little bit more involved. Procedure 1, I found interesting as this was one of the notes I had already made for myself. It is important for principals to be familiar with the teacher quality standard as well as with the evaluation policy set out by Alberta Education. So it starts there. Many of the procedures in this list are very similar, if not the same, to the ones outlined in the Alberta Ed Policy. All reports must be put in teacher's personal file, is in my school procedure. If you read through the government procedure, it requires that all reports are handed to teachers, and teachers have a copy of it. Another one that I had highlighted is this procedure ensures that teachers understand that they are able to have a role in this process and that they have a right to see the evaluation and comment on the evaluation. Part of that would be the principal's role in communicating the procedure to the teachers before the evaluation process. The other onus, of course, is on the teachers to be aware of policies and procedures in regards to anything they get involved in, such as evaluations. School procedure gives more detail than the provincial one. just to make sure that there is a step for everything. So it goes on through here, it explains what needs to happen for a continuous contract in number 7, probationary or interim contracts in number 8, and permanent certification in 9. There was no specific policy in my division that I could find in regards to teacher supervision. Again, as I said, it seems to be the shortest and most left out of the documents that I have looked at. I'm hoping to meet with my principal tomorrow if he can find the time and find out if there's more. What we do have is, oh, there it is, Administrative Procedure 404, Expectations for Teacher Performance. This document is very much in line with teacher quality standard. Difference, of course, being I work in a separate school division. So procedure number 1 is directly involved to the faith life of the teacher. And then the normal subject headings that you would expect to see. Knowledge of subject matter, general education, and all of those pieces that we see in the teacher quality standard. Down in number 11 and 12, relations with administration, 11.2 specifically speaks to the teacher cooperates with supervisors in the teacher evaluation. And then 12 speaks, oh, sorry, not 12, 14 speaks specifically to professional growth and the teacher's responsibilities there. Okay. Oh, how do I get back? Sorry, we're back. Okay, a couple of my thoughts on my divisional policies. I quite honestly find them fairly vague. I find they're vague, and the good point to that is that they don't add a lot of work to anybody's plate, teacher or administrators. I wonder how meaningful they are. I wonder if they're vague and it could be quite easily used as, let's check this box and get this done. How supported is the teacher in the process? How much growth is encouraged specifically through this process? Not that growth isn't encouraged from administrator to teachers in other ways, but this policy, or these policies, don't necessarily support that in my eyes because they're not very comprehensive. Specifically in regards to the teacher growth plans, I know that every year I have handed these in, and I'm certain that then something gets handed in on the other end, again, to check those boxes. The most meaningful years I've had is where I've been able to sit down with an administrator and talk about that document and have some communication and dialogue over as to what I'm doing, how am I meeting that. I think even more meaningful, which has never happened in my case, would be a follow-up meeting later in the year, pursuing that document as well. Supervision, as I said there, we don't have a specific policy for that. In my 12 years with the division, I have been through a variety of different supervision initiatives that often start out strong. One year it was what we referred to as the drive-bys, where administration was to come through with their checklists of what they were looking for in your classroom. They happened for a little bit, they fizzled out, didn't receive a lot of feedback from them that was meaningful to myself. Most recently this year, we were given an evaluation schedule or calendar, as well as some documents as to what administration would be looking for. Again, initially you think, great, going to get some feedback, going to use this to improve. My date was scheduled for the end of February, beginning of March. I have yet to receive my evaluation for the year. And the last one, teacher evaluation. Again, I think it's a great policy. It's important to have in place. I haven't been through this process for, I suppose, 10 years since I received my permanent certificate. So personally, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I know that when it came time for me to locate documents specifically as to my teacher evaluations, I personally did not have any copies of it, and my school board did not have any copies of it. Now, I would have to go back and look at dates to see when specifically policies changed, where those documents should be or who was responsible for them. But I believe that having in place in the current policies that everybody should have a copy of those documents, again, is better for encouraging growth and supporting the teacher if they have that feedback and they can work with it. All right, so that was long, and Wayne will speak to you about his policies.
Great, okay. Thanks so much. All right, folks. So as you can tell, Janet has a nice webcam on her Apple laptop, and my webcam is actually not a webcam, but a potato. But I think you'll still be able to get through my presentation here. So Janet nicely shared the provincial policies and took a look at her own school's policies. And now I'm going to share with you my own school division's policies and procedures. All right, so this is my school division's website, and here are our policies under staff personnel. And professional growth supervision and evaluation has its own policy in my division, and that's 402.11.2. However, before I get into that, I think it all really starts with a foundation of support, which exists in other policies. So the very first policy in the staff personnel section is 400.1, which is a welcoming, caring, and respectful, safe work environment. So this comes from the Canadian Charter, the Alberta Human Rights Act, and the Alberta School Act, and basically it ensures that each employee, superintendent, teacher, custodian, even volunteer, has the right to work in sites that promotes equality of opportunity, dignity, and respect. So no one will be discriminated against. And all this will foster a sense of belonging that enables professional growth, supervision, and evaluation to happen in an actual meaningful way. Something else that I like is that the administrators that are doing the supervision and evaluation are also ATA members and adhere to the same ATA code of conduct. And that fosters a feeling that we're all kind of playing for the same team with the same objectives. And I know that that's the case for almost everyone in our cohort. However, Richard is in British Columbia, and I know he's not in Group B, but I'm going to jump over to Group A to see what his thoughts on that are, because teachers and the supervisors are not in the same union in BC, but here in Alberta they are. Also, our division, effective in October of 2016, created a policy aimed at establishing and maintaining welcoming, caring, respectful, and safe learning environments that respected all sexual orientation, gender identities, and gender expressions. And this is also backed up by the Charter, by Alberta Human Rights Act, Alberta Bill of Rights, and the Alberta School Act. And basically it says that everyone has the right to be treated fairly, equitably, and with dignity and respect. And that informs how we're able to actually do the professional growth, supervision, and evaluation of all different teachers. In my own context, at the school that I work at, one of my coworkers is transgendered, and they're going through the evaluation process. And without this specific policy, with this specific policy, they are brought into the school community in an official way and more respectful way that is also appreciative of individual differences. And so I think that for some people that exist within my context, the fact that that specific policy exists helps with the professional growth, supervision, and evaluation. We also have policies around whistleblowing, disclosure of wrongdoing, and harassment and discrimination. And what I'm getting at is that all of these policies actually lay a solid foundation for the policy around professional growth, supervision, and evaluation, which is 402.11.1. And it is consistent with the School Act, with the TQS, and with Alberta Ed policy. Unlike Janet's, where there were separate policies, this is kind of an all-in-one. So it has regulations around teacher growth, and all of that it basically comes down to the growth plan. There's nothing else in the teacher growth section except for the growth plan. So I think that that's an area that could be shored up, because there's other ways to support teachers' growth besides a growth plan. And as Janet was saying, it depends on your administrator. I've had administrators that I know have not read my growth plan. I know that it has just been filed off and a box has been checked that that has been taken care of because it says in Alberta Ed policy that it must be. And I've also had administrators who have been tremendous and have used the teacher growth plan to actually inform my growth as an educator. And I have had feedback and I have had meetings. And so I've seen both ends of the spectrum here, but basically it comes down to the administrator. The section for supervision is all about providing support and guidance to teachers, and it says observing and receiving information about the quality of teachers' practice. So again, not a lot there, but in my own context, currently, I have a very large school, 1,200 students, about 100 staff members, 4 administrators, and I have an administrator who pops their head in my classroom every single day. Every single day. One of my 4 administrators comes into my classroom just to make me feel like I am supported and just so that the students know that they're around. I've also been in a context where I probably went an entire school year without an administrator in my classroom. So again, the policy exists, but it comes down to how that policy is enacted by each individual administrator. And then when it comes down to teacher evaluation, basically the evaluation happens when, similar to what Janet was saying, when you're going for a permanent certification from interim to permanent. And if you are looking at conversion of a term contract into a continuing contract. Now, like Janet, I've been teaching for about a decade and I earned my permanent certification a long time ago. However, just this year, I've switched to a brand new school division, so I'm going through this all over again. And it's been fascinating, actually, to go through this while I myself am going through this leadership program at the University of Lethbridge. And when I first was going through it, I was scared. I was a brand new teacher. I had a family. I had to get a contract so that I could feed my kids. Now I'm sure that I'm going to get my permanent contract. And I've just felt supported by my administration. And I've used this as a way to grow. And my administrator has just been wonderful in helping me do that. So again, even under teacher evaluation, it comes down to, I think, the quality of your administrator. So that is my own context. And now I'd like to share with you our provocation. So we would like each of you to find the policies or procedures in your division that relate to professional growth, supervision, and evaluation, and compare these policies to the Alberta Education Policy titled Teacher Growth, Supervision, and Evaluation. Does your division also have policy that would provide a foundation for this growth, supervision, and evaluation to happen in a meaningful way? Number 1, in which ways do you feel these policies allow school principals to support the growth of classroom teachers? 2, in your current context, do you believe these policies and procedures are implemented A, for principals to fulfill a duty, or B, to actually encourage growth and ensure competence in classroom teachers? Discuss your choice. 3, as a future school principal, how do you see this policy fitting into your leadership style? So that is our provocation, and we hope that you have been adequately provoked, and both Janet and I really look forward to reading and responding to your posts throughout the next week. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you in the forums.